Hey, Claudia and Yichen, great to have you both. Today, folks, we're doing something different, having, three of us talking about very interesting topic. Introducing my guest, Claudia. Claudia is CEO and co-founder. She's a hacker turned founder of Vidoc Security Lab. We're building AI tooling to find fixes and vulnerabilities, specifically into AI-generated code and focusing primarily on 0 days. Welcome, Claudia. Great to have you. And another favorite guest, Yichen, who's the second time guest here. So glad to have you, Yichen, again. Yichen is co-founder and CEO of Fleak. She's building data translation layer for agents. And one of the key verticals Yichen is focused on is on cyber. So Yichen, you're probably exposed to a lot of data and you probably see very interesting things. Maybe you can share some of the dirty details with us today. And previously, Yichen co-founded a $400 million VC fund and named as Rocketship. That was her, second job out of school, Yichen?
Second.
Okay. I want my second job to be like that. So we're going to do slightly things differently. I have had background in vulnerability research. That was my first job out of school at a company called Qualys, which was really the first vulnerability SAST detection company there is. And then, so Yichen would like to moderate this, and we're going to have a good discussion today. So Yichen, over to you. You're going to run the RISE podcast today.
I'm so glad and honored to join the podcast again. And now we have my favorite two people on this topic and very qualified to share their quite different opinions. I volunteered to be the panel today. So Abhishek and Claudia, you two have spent, I don't know how many years in cyber. I know you guys for a long time, but I lost count on how many years you've been spent in the industry.
I did my master's in 2004 to 2006 at Carnegie Mellon when nobody would give me a job in cyber. I got very lucky to get a job with Qualys in California. So yes, I've been working in cyber since 2004.
Claudia?
Nice. It's been more than 10 years for me. So my first job, I think it was 2016, 2017, something around.
Okay.
And before that, I did it as a hobby. So
Ooh, wow.
don't know if that counts.
Nice, very nice. I think you two are more than qualified to comment on this topic. So on the scale 1 to 10, how scared both of you are at the historic moment after since all the major media outlets hit the panic button on the Mythos release? Claudia?
Not really scared. I would say I'm very, very happy that Anthropic did this marketing stunt called Mythos released and Project Glasswing, because this is something researchers have been talking about for last at least half a year, if not year, that LLMs became capable of detecting 0 days at large scale, right? And the industry wasn't aware of this. It wasn't listening. But now when the big guys started talking about it, people start to realize this problem. And also with all the data breaches last year related to vulnerabilities in the software, the timing is right to focus on this problem.
Yeah, I think I agree with Claudia on pretty much everything. I don't think I'm scared one bit. I think part of me I think the 0 day thing is quite a bit hyped up, and Claudia may disagree with me on this. I think if we traditionally look the kind of vulnerabilities that are exploited, if we look at, I just pulled up Verizon's data breach annual report from 2025, most of the hacks or the vulnerabilities that are being exploited are usually around credential abuse, vulnerability exploitations. And it's really like at least the percentage that I could find was only 1% of 48,000 CVEs are exploited in the wild. And yes, now we can say that it becomes easier, but the cost, even if you can find 0 days and exploiting 0 days are two very, very different things. It's just because you discover a 0 day, it doesn't mean that you can exploit it. Another simple thing that we are missing is phishing and configuration issues, S3. Like if we normally look what the biggest thing that gets into the news, is usually that database credentials were stolen. So I really felt it significantly hyped up on the day part. Yeah.
Yeah, but I would go back to the definition of the 0 day, because for me, misconfiguration can be a 0 day as well. 0 day from the definition is just a vulnerability that developer or designers of the system are not aware of, right? So we can talk about it. The fact that it doesn't have a CVE doesn't mean it's not a 0 day, and majority of the maybe not majority because I don't have data, but a lot of researchers, when they submit a vulnerability to report to the company, they don't even apply to get CVE assigned. Not to mention the internal security assessment, right? You don't. The fact that this is not a CVE doesn't mean it's not a 0 day. Yeah, but apart from that, absolutely agree. Phishing and human being the weakest link is always a case, with LLMs or without LLMs in play.
So basically, the 0 day might not be as theatrical as what the media outlet think. It can be 19-year-old trying to fake a help desk ticket.
Yeah, I think I agree on the. So the way I was thinking about 0 days are, your Microsoft patched user days, and they're releasing CVEs, and you're right. Like the whole definition is 0 days. Like nobody knows about it. And traditionally, what comes to mind in my mind is 0 days of large companies that are software being installed. So that is one concept that is pretty popular. The second thing, I think, Claudia, what you are mentioning is securing your own code base and your own misconfiguration, right? And so you are broadening that, at least the traditional definition, and I'm talking about 20-year-old definition that I sort of started working on. It was around like Microsoft patched users, Adobe's, or I think recently there was with Axios vulnerability. I was talking to one of our design partners, and it just took all their time, right? So we talked about these external libraries, and we talked about 0 day in that sense. And now you're saying, I think, where the whole hype around Mythos is 0 days in your code, which is not third-party code. Is that what you define?
Exactly. Like in general, the 0 days, so the vulnerabilities that designers are not aware of, it can be your code, it can be external library, open source library, it can be the tool you're using, but yeah, that's the definition for me.
So 0 days are everywhere. Oh, it might not even categorize as 0 days. So forget about how many days. It might be the lack of cyber terminology from me. As a data infra founder, for me, like the most concern from my customers' perspective is always about all these kind of different kind of breaches happening on their data, on their softwares. So what exactly the real risk we're facing here, and how alert we should be, and all the things that we're not actually paying attention to from your perspective. Abhishek?
I think my key thing, I think we are focused, I think which makes sense, that a lot of focus is on existing software code base, and largely, at least if I say like point in time today or the day Mythos is made out to public, still I would say majority of code was written by humans. And yes, AI has probably written a lot of code in last 1 year, I would say. I mean, I don't think models were good enough. I think they've become really, really good in last 6 months, really, like just me using Cursor and Windsurf. But what is going to be interesting is from this point onwards, most of the code would be written by AI. Like at the speed, I think maybe in 2 years we've written more code than the history of humanity, right? I don't know what the scale is, and I don't know if any one of you have put data. And if I look at AI generated code, like, I mean, it just misses so many things, like configuration, like forget about like what it was in my mind, like exploiting a hard code reverse engineering a Microsoft binary in IDA Pro. Now you're just basically like you have a single S3 repository which is just open. And like I think people are so focused on Mythos causing issues. I think it's maybe Cursor and Windsurf. What are the checks and balances when you're actually creating code? And I think that, to me, I was just thinking about, it's like a huge, huge risk. Just even thinking from my team's perspective internally.
How many 10x developers do you have?
I mean, including me.
Yeah, we have 3 developers. So it's like we're so proud of like, oh, we have 10x developers now.
Yes, I think there's an opportunity. People, well, I think a separate conversation, but just to answer your question, Yichen, I think using the right tools and with the right mindset, people who are more system design thinking can become 100x developers with these tools. But I think more important is we don't need traditional code developers. We need systems end-to-end thinker. And I think that's when we truly utilize, at least that's my opinion. I'm like, would love to learn from you both. You both very technical yourself and write code. So
Yeah, I know Klaudia is pretty disciplined on that. I have a question for you. Is like from a text developer perspective, like how do you prevent the text tech debt or attack surface in the one afternoon among your developers?
Yes, so that's a very good question. For me, forget the manual code review. It doesn't exist anymore. At least manual security code review. Like nobody has time for that. This is one thing. Second thing is that the volume of the code increases so much and the speed increases so much that like the traditional definitions of what is low level, high level vulnerability, they don't cover what we have to deal with right now, right? The vulnerability might be very easy to be prevented or very trivial because, or might not be even a vulnerability from the traditional definition of what vulnerability is. It can be a business logic issue, but because we have volumes and volumes of code and layers of code, it can be exploitable and it can expose your company. So this is the real risk: how to catch those at large scale with fast development. Yes, there definitely. If you use AI to develop code, you need to use AI to protect the code. Do your research, check what works best for you. Definitely you need LLM based tools in your pipeline. There is a new buzzword being created. So AI secure software development, AI-driven security software development lifecycle, and how to do it properly. Scan your code base with multiple models. Don't go for the new shiny things. The models out there have similar capabilities to what Mythos promise. And you definitely need and I always say to people, you need to remember that LLMs are not shoot and point and shoot solutions. It's not like, if you are dealing with 30 million lines of code, large corporate code base with some legacy code, that won't work. You need an entire engine for that, and there are tools out there that are able to help.
Abhishek, you're building so many like industrial AI agents, like at the infra level. Like, what kind of things you are worried, or what kind of controls you put in place?
I think putting really, really a lot of systems in place. I will just give a simple example before we go into security. Is if you are building UI front end, which I mean, Claude can do phenomenal job at it, like especially Opus. If you just see from the next prompt from one developer's machine to another developer machine, like in the same repo, it's building different UI. It changes the font and everything. Like just that simple thing, right? And for that, you have to put cursor rules in place to have a consistent UI. So now when you start actually taking that repository, which is like multiple developers, how do you get code consistency and code guidelines? And how do we even ensure that it's actually following the rules? Because sometimes it doesn't. So forget about the security issues. But the thing that we realized, just by doing that, we got some level of consistency to begin with. Otherwise, it was just wild, wild west. Like every version of the UI was just different from the last one. It was just like fascinating to see, right? So I think so I think not just taking that frame on security guidelines, like what I think I would just go actually during writing code. And I think the more I think about it, like there's a lot of guardrails, like what can we do during writing code as we write the code versus after the code. Because other thing that I just absolutely see are just most applications were very simple in the sense were sort of simpler in nature, where you have like UI in some sort of database and you're doing simple action. They're not truly complex. Now we can have such complex software where an ability that I didn't have about a certain industry, I can build that thing. So we will get very, very complex code. And now doing a reverse engineering from a tool that is sitting in the end of your pipeline would be much harder to do versus actually while I'm writing the code. So long thing, like I've thought about this quite a bit actually, but I would love to hear what both of you think about this.
I think for us, well, the nature of our architecture prevents certain behaviors, like you mentioned, because we don't even allow access to data that's not in motion. And by the way, when we do in motion processing, everything is encrypted. So I think fundamental like software design principles do applies. It's just the speed of how AI build things. Like you said, you build me a UI, build me a login, but they never will ask you about your SOC compliance or structure requirement before they build it for you. So it's so fast, like sometimes engineers just don't think about it anymore. It's at the speed. The same reason people throwing data at the AI without thinking twice. And I think fundamentally, it's a human responsibility, not an AI responsibility.
So, I mean, 100% Yichen, but how do you think about like making sure that we put guardrails? Like as team grows bigger and bigger, it would be just, and then you have just these tools which are massively capable. How do you ensure quality control? And both of you have distributed teams. So how do you ensure that code, like the data part makes sense. Like we're very, very paranoid about data, like the way we are building the things. But how do you ensure that code is written in the proper way to begin with?
Well, make sure what the engineers or AI models or code, whatever copilot you're using, have certain access versus not have certain access. And for our perspective, because we're touching so many mission critical data sets, we never use at least AI alone to validate whatever we generated or we wrote in code base. So there has to be like a foolproof way of validating what we produce, so that we know in the production environment, in any kinds of corner cases, it will still behave the way that we expect them to behave. So there's a balance between like intelligence versus deterministic behaviors. But that's my view. I think Claudia is in a very different space. So
Yeah, I have a question for you, Yichen, but I want to hear what Claudia has to say.
Yeah, of course. Like definitely the education of your software engineers on what the good practices are around using all those tools. But also, we are building a tool for code security. So of course we are using it on our code base. I might be biased, but still the quality of the output we are having from the tool is definitely something we depend on in our process of development. And it's not only about our tool, because our tool is focused on security code review, but we use different tools for like a general code review. And then we have, when we are dealing with very sensitive code, we always make sure there is a human in the loop. So.
And what are the tools you're using, Claudia, today? What does your stack look like for secure development?
Oh, I don't know if we can disclose that.
It's such a secret. Even your secure development is
very secure.
Wow.
Yeah, Vidoc by Vidoc Security Lab, of course. Kloc for the general review.
Yeah.
That's on the development side.
So there's no secret other tools other than Vidoc and Cloud that you want to share with us?
No, not really, because like yeah.
Come on, give it up, Claudia. Give it up. It's not such a big secret.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. We'll get it over at battery. So so I think my question to both of you, I think one of the things is, which I think you'll see very quickly, you will have a competitor in your space, and I think you both have reasonably decent amount of competitors. who raise a bunch of money and then just like ship features very, very quickly. And maybe their vulnerability hits them, or maybe it doesn't. How do you think, how scalable is your human in the loop? Like most of the time, I don't think developers are even looking at the code that was written by the developer, right? So even for the sensitive code base, what would you do in that situation where you now, because everybody can write code faster than anybody else, every company will build more features than ever before. So we are caught up in the rat race. It's like no company is going to be faster than the other. So now how do you think about security, where how do humans come to that scale?
I think this problem have two phases. One is, should we actually building that many features? I remember the interesting conversations that from, I don't know, remember like founder of Notion or Figma mentioned like it's, as startup or building product companies, like one of part of the past that we tend to skip at the post LM era is like we skip the grind between a user and a product. So I think on our side, at least at Fleak, we're trying to reflect that a lot of times. Like if you're not building the features that eventually being needed for the users, then probably you should cut it all out instead of trying to leave it there, become a vulnerability, right?
Yeah, I think I would challenge that, Yichen. I would really challenge that in today's world. I think there was like a whole notion of this, like, I think Dropbox era companies and Asana like companies, like, oh, you go build one thing and you just go crazy with go to market. Like a lot of those companies will have tremendous amount of problems now because they never became a platform, right? And like just people, because to acquire every customer, like people are just going to go so horizontal. Everybody is doing that. Everybody is going horizontal or they're going vertical, right? So I don't know, Yichen, that the whole philosophy on focusing this small like made sense, because writing code was hard, finding engineers was hard. Like this is basically more people around the world can write code and write higher quality code, and then information is not a barrier. So I just don't think, and maybe a lot of people disagree with me, I just don't think the old model of like a very narrow thing and go fast on go to market is just going to work anymore. But I mean, I'm happy to hear your thoughts on this.
Genre of thought is why we're in the society with overproduction than consumption, right, to begin with. So I think there's a different finite number of things that we need to do, and I think from a startup perspective, even tokens, it is a cost, right? Even though it feels like not like a cost. Like like you brought a good point. Like, are you trying to build vertical? Are you trying to build more features horizontal? It's like it's ultimately is still a decision to make. Oh, my point is back to the topic we're discussing today is just don't leave unnecessary things in the product. So like there's nothing to attack with if that thing is not being used. And usually that is the most vulnerability happen is people ignore what's being left over there. If you do someone is paying attention to these features that you're building, then probably it's will take some maintenance and attention from the team on a regular basis. So it's less likely um, to fall out of the operation.
Claudia, what are your thoughts? It's like we had long discussion on this.
Yeah, I feel like going vertical versus horizontal. Yes, everybody's going horizontal because it's extremely easy to build a lot of features that are okay quality. And I think this is the case of first wave of AI fancy tools. And the second wave will be more about quality because people don't want to use the MVP product forever. If this is if your product gives me a feature and it's only product or the market who has that feature and it's good enough, I'm going to use it. But if there will be another product that maybe don't have that many fancy features but does this job and does it amazing and does it a lot better than whatever you build, I don't care and I switch, right? So that's my take on horizontal versus vertical. But we will see. The future will we'll see. And of course, I'm not talking about every. There are segments where it doesn't matter the quality. There are segments where quality matters more. But in general, that's my take. If it goes about the second part, so we've been talking about the second part was around the vulnerability management in the AI product era, right? Is it? I will tell you a story I had recently. Yes, like the AI speed ups the process of development. We can ship features, but with the right tooling in place, we can really make sure we, at least the low-hanging fruits in terms of vulnerabilities are not out there if we do it right. I recently had a call with a company that hired around 20 developers, but they had a development pipeline I have seen only in enterprises before. I'm talking about full coverage of development, staging, production, a pipeline with all the SAST tooling, DAST tooling, AI based, non-AI based in place. And it was run by one person. And the reason that this person was able to do that as one person, so we are talking about full scale, almost full scale security team with one person, was because this person has access to AI tooling. So I'm guessing the bar is raising for both attackers and defenders in this case, and the security management will need to adapt even in large corporations and in small startups as well, because what I can see from the market right now is that nobody is safe. Nobody is safe. You are doing 5 people company somewhere in, I don't know, Switzerland, and you think nobody will care. No, that's not true. They will try to hack you, and they will most probably succeed if you don't care about security.
Yeah, I agree with the last part, Claudia. I think with Bolsters, we had customers like laundry companies as customers. So we initially thought Bolster, you're going to take bat size down. And people usually think most VCs thought it's a Fortune 2000 problem. And it was absolutely not the case. The damage is actually more when you're small because you can't recover. You don't have the best practices or the tooling. So 100% agreed there. Yeah.
Well, given all of us sell to enterprise and all of us building products, what are the kind of lessons or practices you would recommend to your enterprise customers that you think is working great for you internally?
Claudia, why don't you go first?
When I'm talking with enterprises, I sometimes we all live in San Francisco. We live in AI bubble, right? We have an impression that everybody is using AI because, and so first thing I would say is that no, not everybody is using AI. At least not everybody is using AI for the things we think is obvious. So some of the things that we practice won't apply to those enterprises simply because they don't have modern stacks. So my recommendation is don't go with fancy tooling before you ask yourself a question if you really need that, and if your company is at this stage to really need that. That would be the first thing I would say.
I think there's multiple layers depending on where the organizations are. I think there's just a lot of fundamental issues. So Claudia is right. I talk to fairly diverse set of companies and enterprises right now. We're just evaluating because they're just so concerned of bringing AI. But I think what is happening at the ground level, people are trying tools in their organizations, and often somebody has just built a Claude artifact and they're publishing it on the internet, which may be connected to Salesforce. Literally, I was talking to somebody where the salesperson was pushing PRs to GitHub. It's just never, he was just what's going on, Abhishek? And now it's can you approve my PR coming from a salesperson, which is just fascinating and scary at the same time. So now imagine your Claude artifact is connected to your Salesforce. What could really happen? So if we really, really think about this, it may be the most secure code written in the world. And Claude, how do you even manage that chaos that is just going to happen within these enterprises, right? So forget code reviews and things so I think just organizing at basic level, who is developing, where is my code even actually, where are my applications running? People don't even know that. Like people don't even know today how much, who is using, once they give out cloud keys, how much of like which application is using more budget, like because they're just giving out keys, like it's all over the place. So I think it's a really, really hard problem. I think I would really think about very, very simple things first. Uh, like really go down to the beginning. Like, so there is two problems. Like you have existing code base and then you have net new code base. And I think we can still manage existing code base through a lot of what our existing thing is, because even existing code base is going to be added with AI code base. And I think my biggest worry is what is going to be created net new. How do we manage that? I think there is an opportunity to do it right, versus we never had that opportunity. You know, a lot of code is still like 20, 30 years written 30 years ago. What is your take, Yichen? Like, I think I want to hear your take. Sorry. Like you come from data perspective, right? So whatever you can share, like how, so there's like, I think Claudia and I focus from the code side of things, but what about the data side of things? Like, which is like, even if I exploit code, what am I going to do? Literally, I'm going to steal your data or going to plant a worm to steal your data, right? So it ends of the day, what does code exploitation leads to? So what is something enterprises should think about securing their data? What can they do? And like, so there's that one part. And the second part, I would like to know, like, how should their code interact with data?
So I think we're very, very early in terms of figuring out a way to implementing AI in the production environment. I think, like both of you commented, even the larger the enterprise we interact with, I think the best they can do is have a pretty streamlined monitoring mechanism. I'm not even talking about detection or prevention, because that would introduce a latency in their day-to-day operations, and no one likes that. So then even for monitoring, it's a very expensive thing to run, as we imagine. I would know like half of the companies we interact with has not even turned on all the cloud loggings yet. So, right, that's a hard debate gonna be ongoing, whether you want to see everything by turn on all the trails and logging systems, but then at the consequence of maybe an exploding storage bill on the data side, might be not even like customer data, just for operation data sets, right? So that's a debate gonna be working on for a long time, and I think that's part of our job is to make that less of a sacrifice or struggling a bottleneck. We just increase coverage more as a first step. And at the same time, we make sure the downstream storage does not explode as it would be. And the scariest fact, a lot of people are saying dumping AI prompts into Splunk. So please stop doing that if you are doing that. So yeah, but yeah, I think visibility is really near the first step. Then depending on the enterprise needs, we can add triggers, add controls on how the data flow and how the data travels. But yeah, that's what we are.
Definitely, but to be honest, I would like to challenge your point about legacy code bases and how they maybe don't need that much of our attention, because we need to remember that like even the older parts of your code base, they are usually somehow connected with everything new that is built on top of that. And very often what I see happens is that because you open up system on your front end or in a newer part of your system, there is a vulnerability, and you have some vulnerabilities in the older part of your system that might be even much maybe might be even categorized as something unexploitable. Because of that vulnerability in the newer part of the system, they become a huge threat for your company. So I would say use the fact that you can have 1,000 security engineers in your pipeline called security agents to scan your security of your code base and patch those vulnerabilities as well.
Yeah. So, Claudia, I'm not saying it's like we don't need to look into the legacy code base. I think the thing is there are some checks and balances in place. I mean, if it's legacy code, if you're a large enterprise, I'm assuming there is something already there, somewhat, right? It's tested, it's in the production environment. What I'm making a shift, and I think where I would sort of stick to my point is, I think within 1 year, most organizations will have more code, and this sort of is a sort of a linear, like with the organization, if they don't let their engineers go, everybody is producing more code like over a weekend that they could produce over a year, and it's just going to increase, and the quality of code will increase, and a lot of things would increase. And I think like now just thinking about like why Mythos is not integrated with like Cloud Code to begin with, so you just write secure code to begin with, right? Like right, that is a possibility. Now we don't need to think, oh, Mythos is like very different than writing code. Why there are two parts to begin with? Why do I need separate agent as I talk about this, right? So I really see just within next 6 months, there will be just way more code than the existing code base that humans wrote. And I don't know what the scale is. And that's where my worry becomes more on the newly generated AI code than the legacy code base.
Well, I'm personally very excited about Mythos rather than panicking about it. I was like, oh, if this thing can map my messy situation to all the NIST controls, I will be very happy. My engineering team will never look at a compliance checklist ever again. Take my money
Yeah.
today. But anyway.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think before we go into the opportunities with frontier model, I do want to get your thoughts, like, and especially like Claudia, like, people who don't have access to Mythos, and now basically we've created all this hype. Now everybody's panicking. I'm sure you're having fun time with your customers right now. What can people do with existing models? And I would love to hear your opinion, like who don't have Mythos and who may never get Mythos, maybe, or can't afford Mythos, right?
Yeah. So first of all, the capabilities of Mythos are not so unique as Anthropic wants you to believe. The 0 days detection of 0 days, we could do that with other models before. We even released a research article how we found the same security vulnerabilities that Mythos did with older models. The thing is that Anthropic is claiming that their model is doing it out of the box and doesn't need much adjusting. But again, models are not point and shoot solutions. You need the entire, we call it engine around them, right? To make it work, because you need to provide the LM with context, because otherwise you will have more false positives than actual vulnerabilities detected by the tool, and you will waste a lot of time. So definitely check out the AI based tooling for code security available out there. And what we always recommend to our enterprise customers is it's not about one particular model, because every model is different in different things. Every company is, of course, having their own benchmarks, and they claim their model is the best at choose the fancy thing they want you to believe it's the best at. But the reasoning capabilities of LLMs that can be used for detection security vulnerabilities are good enough in other models as well. So check your code base with multiple different models, and really implement this tooling in your pipeline to have the checks very early on in your development process. Don't wait until it's too late. Those would be my recommendations for today.
So I think Yichen, you already touched on, I think, what is really the opportunities, I think, and what you're excited about with Mythos. And I think now OpenAI has also a model, right? I think one of the things that I see is really around compliance. It's such a pain as a startup to deal with compliance, and like just dealing with AWS, and every compliance company, they say like they are AI automated. I think we had one recently. You all know about it. And we all found out it was not. So it's really, I think, the opportunity where I see a huge, where I think like Mythos being the 0-day finder versus zero, like it writes the secure code to begin with and connects with my AWS or GCP and ensures compliance, like some of the very, very difficult compliances like PCI, right? And I'm sure like these compliances include outside code and infrastructure like processes, but at least if that is part is taken care, like just configuring AWS takes so long. So I'm very excited about those sort of opportunities. I'm curious, like what really excites you both?
I think compliance is definitely a big one. Because historically, most of people, like even enterprise leaders, consider compliance as a sales blocker, right? There is a way to automatically make that happen, then you can argue this thing becomes a sales accelerator rather than a blocker. So that's a fundamental shift on the mindset. If you are someone trying to sell to your CFO about certain compliance or AI automation tools. So that's very exciting from a commercial perspective.
Compliance, definitely. I'm all for it.
Yeah.
That's a big one. Also from our perspective, exploits and ability of Mythos of writing exploits. We again know that older models are capable of it as well, but the bigger accuracy, what Anthropic is promising, that's definitely something I'm looking at.
Okay, I think we're near time. This is really, really phenomenal. I do have one hard question, Klaudia, which probably you get asked by all the VCs. I'm just going to ask it. I can't resist. If Mythos start writing secure code, what does Vidoc Security come in?
I knew
I highly
How
doubt
did you know
we
that?
are. I highly doubt we are nearly the stage that Mythos is writing secure code, and it's not even about like Anthropic ability to make it write secure code. It's the nature of LLMs as non-deterministic tools, and the fact that the insecure human written code in as a training data means unsecure code out. And we could also talk about the incentives those companies have in selling tools for code generation and making it the code generation a priority rather than security. But
I think other point. I think I had to do that, Klaudia. Otherwise, it won't be fun.
No, but go ahead. I'm like, I'm well prepared for this sort of question.
Coming on. Yichen knows me. Like coming on this podcast, you're going to have some fun. So, I think one of the things what is sort of we're still missing. I think we didn't touch upon this is we can write secure code, but what about the logic? Like I can have a simple logic which is all true. Like I can put simple credentials in the database, which I can just verify, like a really, really simple thing, right? It's secure code, but now I know the credentials that Yichen has or something like. So that is one thing I really think about, like how do you take care of the logic part? I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Klaudia?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the business logic issues can be security vulnerability. And this is something that is hard because the definition of security vulnerability is now different than it used to be. Because if you can use this business logic issue to hack the company, nobody cares that it's not a real vulnerability, it's the business logic issue. Yeah, so this is something that the code security tooling will solve. But also, another interesting point about this question, what if Anthropic release or whatever company release a secure coding version of the model is risk management. You as a CISO, do you want to promise this company that promise you, yes, our solution is secure? Now you always need a guardrail. You always need a guard who will be the last, from the risk management perspective, you want to have this in place. So
I think the thing you're saying that Yichen and I should buy Vidoc is because you're going to be the auditor. That is one. Second, you're working on business logic. And yes, we will be design partners for free. That's all I can afford. Yichen has a lot of money. So,
absolutely. Yes, of course, we can be. No, the main point is, like you get Mythos in your hand and you don't really know what to do with that to have your, and we solve that problem for you.
Yeah, this has been great. Yichen, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I think we touch upon like all the guardrails and compliance. And for me, I'm personally very excited on like, I think we already seen the beginning of that already. It's just like all the mysterious legacy systems and things that we think that require very deep domain knowledge to tackle now is no longer the case. So all the migrations or the things that people think they are locked in is no longer locked in. So very excited for the new opportunity presenting to our time.
Yeah. Thanks, Yichen. Thanks, Claudia. I mean, this has been really fun. I mean, it was just an experiment. I think it is like better than anything I do. Like more on. I think we should do more of this more often if you're both up for it. And one thing I just realized what I'm going to name the podcast. I'm going to put on LinkedIn. This is the podcast nobody should watch. It's too dangerous to watch.
I love it.
Yes, this is what I'm going to do. So thank you both for coming again and finding the time. It was just really a blast. We should do this more often. I'll see you both soon. Have a good one. Thank you.